Hello, third grade, and welcome to topic 15. In this topic, we're going to be working on shapes and geometry. Our first lesson for 15-1 is going to focus on quadrilaterals. So a quadrilateral is just a fancy way of saying a four-sided closed shape. That means none of the sides are just open. Let's go ahead and watch our short video lesson, and then we're going to jump into our notes and our guided practice for this lesson together.
What are some attributes of quadrilaterals? The Welcome to Florida sign is a quadrilateral. How can you describe quadrilaterals? Remember, a polygon is a closed shape that has only straight sides. A quadrilateral is a polygon with four sides and four angles. An angle is formed when two sides of a polygon meet. The point where two sides meet is a vertex. What shapes do you see in the classroom that look like quadrilaterals? A window, the door, and the top of a desk look like rectangles. Some quadrilaterals have special names. A trapezoid has exactly one pair of sides on lines that never cross. A parallelogram has opposite sides of the same length. Opposite angles are the same size. A rectangle has four right angles or square corners. A rectangle is a special parallelogram. A rhombus has all sides of the same length. Is a rhombus a special parallelogram?
Select your answer.
A square has four right angles and all sides of the same length. A square is a special parallelogram.
All right, let's get into our notes and our guided practice together. Now, they've shown you a bunch of different shapes here, a bunch of different quadrilaterals, four-sided shapes. We're going to talk more about the attributes or the different characteristics or qualities of these quadrilaterals. And we're also going to take a look at what I put together for you guys called the quadrilateral family tree. So that's going to be fun to look at. Let's go ahead and jump into our notes and guided practice here. Now, we're on lesson 15-1. What are some attributes of quadrilaterals? Now, remember, an attribute is a quality or a characteristic or a part of a thing, something that describes that thing. Remember, a polygon is a closed shape that's made of straight sides. So all the sides have to be straight, and they all have to meet at different corners or vertexes or vertices. An angle is formed when two of the sides of a polygon meet. And the point where they meet, that corner, is called a vertex. So vertex is what we use for when we're talking about one. Vertex is singular. Vertices is the plural of vertex. It means more than one vertex. And quadrilaterals, we said, are four-sided polygons that have four angles and four vertices. And the root word here is the word quad. Quad means four. Okay, let's take a look at some of the attributes of quadrilaterals. So the first one we talked about was a trapezoid. A trapezoid has only one pair of lines that never meet. So the top and the bottom will continue on and on and on forever, and they'll never cross each other. We call those parallel lines. Parallel lines means they'll go on and on forever and they'll never touch. A parallelogram has the word parallel in it. So here you can see the opposite sides are the same length and the opposite angles are the same size. And it has two sets of parallel lines. So the top and bottom will go on and on forever and never touch. The sides will go on and on forever and never touch. A rectangle has four right angles or square corners. The opposite sides are the same length. So the top and bottom are the same length. The right and left are the same length. And this is a kind of parallelogram. It's a kind of special parallelogram. Next, we have what we call a rhombus. A lot of you guys grew up calling this a diamond. So all sides of the rhombus are the same length. So that means all four sides have the same measurement. And the opposite angles have the same measurement. So this angle has the same measurement as this angle. This angle has the same measurement as this angle. So I color coded these for you guys to help you guys see and recognize and notice these differences as we go along. And finally, we have a square. A square has four right angles or square corners, and all the sides are the same length. This is also a special parallelogram. So all four sides are the same length. That's why they're all traced around with the same color. All the angles are right angles. Okay, before we move on, I want to show you guys the quadrilateral family tree. And I'm going to have copies of this for you guys so that you guys can keep it in your folders and check it when you want to do your homework. Now, a quadrilateral, we said the attributes of a quadrilateral is that it just needs to be a four-sided polygon, four-sided shape. I'm getting a little bit closer for you guys to see it better. All right. Now, quadrilaterals are split into two groups. They're split into trapezoids and into parallelograms. Now, a trapezoid has two sides that will never touch. So it has one set of parallel sides. So the top and bottom here are not ever going to touch each other, but the sides will. If those lines continue on, the sides will eventually touch each other. So if you take a look at it, this side of this continues on up and this side continues on up, they're going to cross over each other. Now, parallelograms have the opposite sides that are equal in length. So the right and left are the same length, the top and bottom are the same length. So I colored these similarly for you. And the opposite angles have the same measurement. So this one matches this one, and this one matches that one. So they cross. So opposite sides are equal length, opposite angles are the same size, and it has two sets of parallel lines. That means these sides will go on and on forever and never touch. The top and bottom can go on and on forever and never touch. Now, parallelograms can be split even farther into two categories. They can be split into rectangles and rhombuses. Now, the attributes of a rectangle are that it has to have the opposite sides are equal length. So this side and this side are the same length. And then this side and this side are the same length. It has two sets of parallel lines. So the top and the bottom can go on and on forever and never touch. The right and left can go on and on forever and never touch. It also has four right angles or four square corners. Those are the attributes of a rectangle. Now for a rhombus, over here, all the sides are the same length. So all four of these sides have the same measurement. The opposite angles are the same size. Those are the attributes of a rhombus. The sides are the same length. The opposite angles are the same size. Now a rectangle and a rhombus can also be filtered down into a square. So this is the most specific one. This one has the most rules that it needs to follow. The attributes of a square are that it has two sets of parallel sides. So the top and bottom will never touch, the right and left will never touch. All the sides are equal length, and it has four right angles. So you see how from the beginning, it doesn't have very many rules to be a quadrilateral. It just needs four sides and it needs to be closed. Then the rules get more specific and more specific and more specific as you go down. So what you can do when you see some of these shapes, because you're going to be asked this in your lesson, it's going to ask you for all of the names of a shape. So if they give you a shape that looks like this, you know this is a square. But if it's a square, it's also a rectangle and a rhombus and a parallelogram and a quadrilateral, because you see how these filter down and become more and more and more specific. And if you look at the rules for it, you'll understand why. How do we know that a square is also a rectangle? The opposite sides are equal in length. It has two sets of parallel sides and it has four right angles. That's the same for the square. Over here, the attributes for a rhombus. So what are the rules for it to become a rhombus? The opposite angles are the same length or are the same size, and all four sides are the same length. So this also meets the same rules for a rhombus. It also meets the rules for a parallelogram. A square also has opposite sides that are equal length. It also has opposite angles that are equal sides, and it also has two sets of parallel sides. It's also a four-sided closed polygon or shape. So when they're asking you for all of the names of a shape, if you're down below, you can give it all of the names that are above it. Now, if you got one of these, this is a rectangle. You can't call it a square. You can only move up. It's a rectangle and a parallelogram and a quadrilateral. What if you got a rhombus? Well, a rhombus is also a parallelogram and it's also a quadrilateral. Trapezoids are only quadrilaterals because they don't meet the rest of these rules. That's why they're on a separate side of the family tree. So remember, if you are thinking of it like a family tree, okay? So this one is related to this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. But if your family tree is starting over here, then this one is only related here and here. You're moving up on the family tree. Okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, and I'm going to give you guys a copy of this, we're going to jump back to our notes, and we're going to talk about two more vocabulary words, and these describe angles and polygons. So the two that we have here are the words concave and convex. Now, a concave polygon. Concave has the word cave in it. So that's going to be a big clue to help you guys remember what it means. Concave polygons have one or more angles that point inward. So think of the word cave. When you go to a cave, you walk into a cave. So you see how these pull in towards the center of the shape. They're not all pointing outwards. This one points in towards the center of the shape. It doesn't matter if it has one or more than one. If it has at least one, it's a concave polygon. Next, we have convex. So convex polygons have all angles that point outward. So all of these vertices, all of these angles here, you can see they're all pointing out from the center. They're not pointing towards the center. So next, let's do some practice. Decide if each polygon is concave or convex. Now for this one, this first shape, I'm going to take a look at it and take a look at all of the angles. This one points out, this one points out, this one points out, but this one points in. If there's even one there that points inward, it makes it a concave shape. So this one is concave. This one, I can see all of these are pointing out. Nothing is pulling towards the center of my shape. So this is a convex polygon. This one, most of them are pointing out, but you see these parts right here point in. They pull in towards the middle of my shape. So this is concave. Here I can see almost all of these point out except this one. This one right here points inward. So this is also concave. Okay, next let's take a look at your notes and your guided practice questions together. For number one, it says this figure is a rectangle, but not a square. Why? So we know that it's a rectangle because it has four right angles and the opposite sides are the same length, but it's not a square because remember, a square needs to have all four sides be the same length. This does not have all four sides as the same length, so it's not a square. Number two, draw two different quadrilaterals that are not rectangles, squares, or rhombuses. So if we take a look at our family tree, it can't be a rhombus, square, or rectangle. It can't be any one of these. So I have to go to the shapes that are higher up. My only two shapes that I have higher up on my quadrilateral family tree are a parallelogram and a trapezoid. So those are the two shapes that I drew over here. For number three, up until number six, they wanted you to give all of the names of those shapes. So that's why we were talking about that family tree. This we know is a parallelogram and a quadrilateral. Why? Because it's right here on the family tree, right near the top. For number four, they gave us a rectangle. So we know a rectangle is also a parallelogram and it is also a quadrilateral. So rectangle, parallelogram, and quadrilateral. Now a rhombus is down here. So rhombus and parallelogram and quadrilateral. I can give it all of those names. And for our square right here, this is the one that gets named with almost everything. We said a square is a rhombus and a rectangle and a parallelogram and a quadrilateral. So let's take a look at our family tree one more time so you can see that, how we built up to that. So our square is related to these two. It's also related to this one and to this one. So that's how it's part of all of those. Okay, that takes us to the end of our notes and our guided practice. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.